In 2016, a survey conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention revealed that 12.9% of boys are diagnosed with ADHD as compared to only 5.6% of girls, which is demonstrated on the graph. So a lot of people would be led to believe that it's more common in boys to have ADHD than girls, but recent research actually revealed that ADHD is just as common in girls, but the symptoms often go overlooked. So it's important that women are aware of the symptoms of ADHD so they can recognize if this may be something they are struggling with. Just for a bit of background, I'm a current college student. About a year ago, I started having problems with school, went into a deep depression, started seeing a therapist who suggested that I might have ADHD, which I'd never really considered before. So for months, I went into a research deep dive, read a lot of scholarly articles, talked to women and men with ADHD, pretty much read anything I could get my hands on, watched YouTube videos, watched TED Talks. So I did a lot of research, and a lot of the symptoms sounded like some stuff that I struggle with. So I'm going to go ahead and share some of the symptoms with you guys. So throughout this presentation, first we're going to talk about what ADHD is and a few of its subtypes, then why gender matters in diagnosis, and last we'll compare ADHD symptoms between women and men. So before we start, I want to remind the audience it's important to recognize ADHD symptoms in women for their own general well-being. So without further ado, let's get into it and start with what is ADHD. So according to the National Institute of Mental Health, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity and impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. So basically that means ADHD can affect your focus, your attention, and your decision making, which can make your daily life more difficult. So there are three subtypes of ADHD. We have predominantly inattentive, predominantly hyperactive / impulsive, and combination. So your inattentive is where you're going to see your problems with concentration. Your hyperactive impulsive is where you're going to see your problems with decision making, and impulse control in combination is going to be a combination of both those types, which is the most common amongst most people with ADHD. So now that we've identified what ADHD is and its relevant subtypes, it's important that we develop an understanding of why gender matters in diagnosis. So according to a research article published by BMC Psychiatry in 2020, there's evidence to suggest that the broad discrepancy in the ratio of males to females with diagnosed ADHD is due at least in part to lack of recognition and or referral bias in females. So what that basically means is girls are less likely to be referred by school faculty, and even when they do see someone about certain symptoms they may be experiencing, they're more likely to be overlooked by their parents or by mental health professionals. So because of this, a lot of women are not diagnosed with ADHD until much later in their life, usually when they have their own kids who are diagnosed with ADHD, and they recognize some of their symptoms in themselves. So how are ADHD symptoms in females presented differently? In childhood and adolescence, girls with ADHD tend to be described as spacey, forgetful, chatty, or talkative. They may also often speak out of turn and blurt out answers in class, as compared to boys who are a lot more external with their symptoms. So they're likely described as rowdy, disruptive, loud, unable to sit still, and they may get up out of their seat, run around, yell at inappropriate moments, and have problems paying attention in class. Now, when both reach adulthood, or when women reach adulthood, according to an article published on the American Psychological Association's website, Women with ADHD typically present with tremendous time management challenges, chronic disorganization, long-standing feelings of stress and being overwhelmed, difficulties with money management, children or siblings with ADHD, and a history of anxiety and depression. So it's clear that as they get older, it really begins to disrupt their daily lives. Um, and as far as men go, if they're still not diagnosed by the time they reach adulthood, they generally tend to socially withdraw and still face a lot of those same problems as women in their daily lives as well. So to review, we talked about ADHD, what it is and its subtypes, how gender affects diagnosis, and we've compared the symptoms between women and men with ADHD. And it is important that women are aware of the differences in presentation of ADHD as it applies to gender, so they can recognize if this may be something that they are struggling with without even noticing. I hope this information has given you a better understanding of what ADHD symptoms may look like in women. My name is Kira. I'm in CST 100 online, and I've just presented my informative speech.